Questions of Doom. Hello and welcome back to another Questions of Doom. In this series, as ever, I attempt to answer questions that you send my way using the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the YouTube channel homepage, but as you'll also see at the end of this video. In answering these questions by video, it is my fond hope that the answer is not only useful to the person who's asked the question, but also anyone else out there who may be wondering the same thing. Now today's question actually is quite interesting because it's come in not in the form of an email and not as a message on the Facebook page, not even in the form of a letter. This message has come via carrier pigeon. No, it hasn't really. It's not come via carrier pigeon. It's actually come as a video in its own right, posted on the Facebook page a few weeks ago. So here is the question.
Hi Mark, or perhaps should I say hi Mr. Soup. I thought I'd try this out and post to you a video question. My name is Jobber, I'm a conflict archaeologist in the Netherlands, and I've recently found your vlog and I've been following it more intensely since then, as you have probably noticed, because I've been reacting to your videos every now and then. Actually, your vlog, which I think is very excellent, inspired me to do a little internet research to how many archaeological vlogs there are in the world. And to my big surprise, I found that there's actually very few. And this is something I really don't understand. I mean, why is there so little people vlogging in archaeology? And of course, one of the obvious reasons could be that archaeologists are not so much into new technology. But even if that's true, I mean, most people in archaeology today are getting younger and younger. I mean, we have 30-year-old archaeologists, we have 20-year-old archaeologists, we have even in their tens young people who are really equipped to do archaeological vlogging. So my question to you for the Questions of Doom series is, why don't archaeology people vlog? I mean, they're all about the public. They're always talking about reaching the public, entertaining the public, informing the public, and still they don't vlog. Why is this? I hope you can give me some answers, and thank you very much.
How wonderful, how utterly novel to be able to share with you guys directly, the person asking the question. Thank you so much to Jobber for sending in this question in this format, and also actually for asking a question which is by definition fairly close to my heart. Obviously, I have an opinion on vlogging and archaeology and whether or not archaeologists should be more engaged with the public via video. Yes, they should. And actually, I've actually answered some elements of this question, or some elements of attendant issues, in a previous video. I did a video, an Archaeoscope video actually, about the 5 risks of public archaeology, and this was actually a condensed version of a talk that I was going to be giving, a paper or whatever presentation I was going to be giving at a conference, which sadly I couldn't due to money concerns, but I'll come back to that. I would recommend that you go and check that out maybe before you watch this video. So I'll put a link actually in the video description below. If I can, I'll put something sort of clickable up above my shoulder here. And certainly at the end of this video, I'll put a link there. So there are issues in play, especially when it comes to academic archaeologists, which I consider in that video. So do check that out. And so, yeah, I totally have an opinion on this. And I think one of the interesting things that you mention in your question is this question of why aren't there more archaeological vlogs out there. And I suppose my instant reaction is to say that I think there are quite a few. It's more that their focus tends to be very driven by an objective. So it tends to be, for example, site interviews for an archaeological project. So maybe they're recording a little bit snippets of footage themselves and publicising what they're doing, or maybe it's someone who has a maybe like a time focused or a subject focused element to what they're doing. They don't tend to cover all of archaeology, and they don't tend to do it just for the public good, just for interacting with the public. And so, yeah, I can sort of see what you mean. You know, the stuff which is out there isn't quite what I might call a vlog. It's more focused than that. But that's no bad thing. That just means that people have a focus. Where vlogs do exist, sometimes they're very good, sometimes they're not so good, sometimes they're very inconsistent, sometimes they start with a bang and then fizzle out when perhaps they're not getting the number of views that they want. It's a complex issue, and we'll discuss that as this video progresses. But also as well, you've got to remember that there are other formats. For example, there are podcasts, and places like the Archaeology Podcast Network. I'm not plugging them. I'm just, I just like what they're doing. Is a great place actually to find podcasts where people, again, they talk about things that interest them. So, there could be something that's specifically about alcohol and archaeology. Wonderful, and so maybe not so broad and maybe a little bit more focused, but vlogs and podcasts do exist and they are out there to be found. But I know what you mean. There isn't a broad adoption of vlogging as practice and vlogging as a regular thing which builds up a body of work. In that sense, Archaeosoup is quite unusual. And again, I'll come to that in a moment. Now, you suggest that perhaps archaeologists are a little bit technology adverse, that the archaeologists maybe don't want to engage with technology. And I just want to tackle that quickly, because I don't think that's the case. I think archaeologists tend to like technology. They tend to enjoy it. But I also think that they tend to, I suppose, see the benefits of technology as something which can be gained beyond a hurdle. So, for example, on an archaeological dig, having a drone guy come in or girl come in and do a wonderful survey is undoubtedly a good thing, and therefore the technology is good. But having to learn how to handle the drone, doing the health and safety, having an awareness of catastrophic failure protocols and this kind of thing, and frankly buying the technology is a hurdle which is a bit of a headache. And so archaeologists, I think, tend to go, ooh. So they'll get someone else in to do that and they'll benefit from the technology, but the technology itself can be a bit of a hassle. And so I think there's an element of that going on when it comes to vlogging. Not least as well because lots of archaeologists want to present their work in the best possible way. So they'll want to invest in the best possible equipment straight away, and that's certainly not something which I could do, or I could have done when I was starting off. So yeah, sometimes technology can be a bit of a hurdle, but also you mentioned that, well, there are more and more young archaeologists. Actually, sorry, specifically you say archaeologists are getting younger and younger. If only that was true. I'm not getting younger and younger. My hairline is testament to that. But I know what you mean. There are more and more archaeologists now graduating than probably ever before. And so therefore, why isn't there a more natural adoption of things like vlogging in archaeological practice? I think that this partly actually has to do with the fact that, frankly, archaeology needs to catch up. The standards of communication between archaeologists, the standard in terms of practice when it comes to talking or engaging with the public, if that ever comes up, is not in the format of vlogging. Vlogging is seen as something which is hobby, fringe, difficult to control, and therefore actually not terribly serious and academic. And so younger people don't engage with it. Even though you may have a personal profile on Facebook and you may understand how that works, and you may have a very good understanding of how to maybe moderate how people are commenting on it and the content therein, the idea of handing that over and connecting that to your work can be a very intimidating prospect. And so, yes, the archaeologists may be getting younger, but there are still these barriers to working in terms of vlogging and public and open access archaeology that make even the most native, digital native archaeologist a bit wary of actually using this stuff with their work. It's an interesting phenomenon, but it's true. I guarantee, if you yourself must know people out there who are quite happy to have a Facebook account, but will get a bit nervous if they're asked to do one that's linked with their archaeological interests. So I think age is a bit of a red herring, really. I think it's got to be more about the passion for doing it, and I think this is really actually the kicker, because in a similar way, there are lots of people out there who are trying to make archaeological social media, in particular, a specialism. And by that I mean, for example, I once saw someone who was advertising to try and get an admin on their Facebook page, and they were saying, get your start in archaeological social media, get ahead of the game, this kind of thing. And because people are more everyday familiar with this sort of technology in their lives, that's not really seen as a novelty. We people tend to be aware that actually it's a hassle running a Facebook page. It's not a new skill. Yes, it's a transferable skill, but it's not one which is particularly rare these days. And so the thing that gets you from being a young, technology aware archaeologist into actually blogging and talking about what you do in an accessible, regular way, I think is more than just your age and access. It's the next step. It's actually passion, because it's not novel for so many people, and I think therefore for so many people it's seen as a chore. And I think this really starts actually to come down to the core of the reason why there aren't as many archaeologists as there might be who do this regularly, or who can stick with it, to be honest, because it isn't easy. You also mentioned that archaeologists increasingly are all about the public. You say always talking about reaching the public, informing the public, this kind of thing. But sadly, that just isn't true. I'm sorry to say. If we look at, for example, the previous video I did, the top 5, you'll see some reasons there. Sometimes archaeologists are scared to put ideas out just in case they're stolen, or just in case they're attacked by the public. But also, lots of archaeologists don't feel that they have the time to engage with the public, and or they feel that somehow engaging with the public lessens their status as a specialist, or as a gatekeeper to the past. And whether they will admit this to you, I've come across this attitude quite a lot, and so have other people who I work with. Funnily enough, on Monday I was at Vindolanda filming with Marta Alberti, the site archaeologist for Vindolanda, obviously, and we were talking about this very issue, and her response was, "Well, that's stupid, isn't it? Why wouldn't you want to talk to the public about what you do?" But we were both aware of instances where archaeologists get very wary, and they want to close down and keep the public out of it. So again, we can't assume that because the technology exists and because archaeologists are young enough and know about this stuff, that they necessarily want to do it. Just because they can, just because they know how, doesn't mean that they want to. And so I think this missing element of passion is what gets you over that final hurdle. So this final hurdle of the fact that it's not easy can take many forms. It can be as simple as time management. One of the reasons it's taken me a few weeks to respond to your video is because I haven't had the time, and I do sort of do this for a living, but my time's been taken up by work which has to come first. I'll come back to that in a moment. Another element can be, so for example, the fact that if you're vlogging, there's no deadline. No one's enforcing a deadline on you, and so actually it's quite easy to let the deadline slip. And I've seen at least 2 people who wanted to get into, for example, running a YouTube channel, come up against this problem. There's no deadline, and then they have chronic indecision. They can't quite decide what they want to talk about, how they want to talk about it, when and where they want to talk about it, how they want to edit the piece together. They make no decisions, and therefore actually nothing ever happens. It's very easy to slip into that. And again, it's the passion, it's the drive, it's that sort of X factor that actually makes people able to do this, and it makes them able to deliver vlogs regularly. Another element actually is equipment. I recently was lucky enough to be able to invest in a basically cut price, but around £2,000 or £3,000 camera. And it's taken me 6 years to get to that point. 6 years of YouTube, 4 years of actually trading with Archaeosoup. And lots of people want this standard now. You know, they want this audio, they want this camera, they want the studio, they want the contacts immediately. And if they can't achieve that, sitting in front of their phone or sitting in front of a webcam can feel very amateurish. And lots of archaeologists feel embarrassed by that. And again, this sort of links in with those 5 reasons that I mentioned in that other video. But there's the sense that somehow what you deliver in a vlog has to match up to the professionalism that you have in your daily life is a strong factor here, I think. It's one which I don't necessarily agree with. I think that actually, if the content is good enough, it doesn't really matter necessarily what you're filming on. I started out with my phone, and people watch that stuff. People still watch that stuff. I think it's a big mental hurdle to get over. The other thing as well is that it does take time to get views and to get viewership. Again, I've been doing the YouTube channel for about 6 years. And in that time, I've had to restart once. I think in 2012, the entire YouTube channel was wiped. I had to start from scratch. And I've only just reached the point of having around 2 million views on the YouTube channel. Around Halloween, that occurred. So it takes time, and therefore it takes patience. And the thing that gets you through that, again, is this desire. It's not necessarily your age or your access to technology or your knowledge. It is the desire to do this. One final consideration, especially when it comes to this, how does one get through some of these hurdles, is actually how does one live while trying to do that? I suppose what I'm getting at is income and money. It's hard to make a living doing vlogging. And for some people, it's even more difficult to have a job and then do vlogging as a hobby and keep up the passion for that hobby as it sort of shrinks into the background compared to, well, the job that you have to go to. This is such an important consideration, and so many people, they minimize one or the other, but they end up basically getting the balance wrong. And so either they crash out of doing vlogging because they just can't afford to do that, or they fixate on their job and forget that they can have a hobby. Money is the elephant in the room, and actually when it comes to things like vlogging and digital content, actually there is a very pertinent economic theory, and that is linked with something called post-capitalism capitalism. The problem of what is this work worth, what is this moment that I'm producing here worth, when it can be copied and shared for free globally in moments. I'm painfully aware, sometimes painfully aware, of how widely my videos are shared, but also actually how sometimes they're being used as teaching aids or even teaching surrogates in universities, which I've never even heard of. And yet I never see any economic benefit from that. Now, on the one hand, I don't mind, because I have an ideal and an ethic and a passion to share knowledge, so that's fine. But on the other hand, if I was totally relying, for example, on YouTube or on vlogging for my livelihood, I couldn't afford to do that. And this question of if you're not actually producing something from iron ore, what is its value, is a big one, because people don't tend to think about the cost of of the camera, and they don't tend to think about the production values, of the fact that, for example, I blew a light bulb when I started filming this. I'm going to have to buy a new light bulb in the next couple of days. That doesn't really occur because it's freely accessible now. I can just click on it and watch it, and it's there. And so I think that tends to frustrate people as well. And this may be another reason why archaeologists aren't rushing to be vloggers, as it were, and rushing to fill the interwebs with their knowledge and their ideas. Because after all, as well, ideas and knowledge come with a certain weight. You've invested time in study, you've invested time in thinking, and maybe even your own intellectual property when it comes to research, for example, might be on the line. So vlogging isn't necessarily something that everyone wants to do. Now, the thing is, I don't want to end on a downer. The question was specifically, essentially, why don't more people vlog? And I think that necessitates a certain, examination of the factors which prevent people from vlogging more. But what I would say is that what I'm trying to do, and also with some other people, with other partners, but also with other people, for example, on the Archaeosoup team, is I'm trying to find a way of making it easier for people to vlog. No, we haven't yet found a model where we can employ people, for example. But we're trying to make it so that by working together, we take, as it were, we shoulder some of the costs here and there, we shoulder some of the burdens, and together we move forward. Now that's not easy. That's really not easy. And at the moment, to be honest, the Archaeosoup team is struggling in some respects. In terms of everyone really across the board has got something going on in their lives right now, and so it's again that gets pushed to the side. And if I had to go and get a normal job, then Archaeosoup would have to be pushed to the side as well. But thankfully, I make my income from workshops. I make my income from commissioned film work for third parties, and so on and so forth. So I'm able to do this. I'm able to deliver this. But finding ways of working, I think, is so crucial. And I invite comments and discussion and thoughts on how that can happen. But also, what I'm doing, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is I'm working with other people, and hopefully next year some of this stuff will start moving, to find ways of reducing the size of these hurdles so that actually we can get more vloggers and more people talking about what interests them, and more people talking about their specialisms. I'm not a specialist on, for example, Japanese archaeology, but I want to know more about that stuff. And so if we can encourage people, find ways to help people to talk about what they know about, then how wonderful would that be? Anyway, that's a whole other discussion, and it's something which I'm still ticking over in my head, frankly. But please do comment below on that. Actually, I'd love to hear any thoughts or attendant perspectives from yous lot out there. Anyway, Jobber, thank you so much for sending in your question. Hopefully, I've answered it. Hopefully, I haven't put too much of a downer on things. But I think this is an important thing to try and tackle. If the ideal is the free sharing of knowledge and ideas, and if the ideal is accessible and regularly produced content, I suppose the question is, first of all, why aren't there more? And secondly, how do we achieve more? And so thank you for this opportunity to discuss this. Thank you. As ever, guys, hopefully this has been interesting. Please do comment below. I look forward to reading any discussions and contributing to those discussions. And until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.